Welcome to the Alignment Show, featuring conversations with folks who have taken steps to identify their highest values and align their lives around them. Time on this earth is not unlimited, and you may be seeking to make sure you spend your time on things that matter to you. These conversations will encourage you and support you in doing so. Now, let's meet this week's guest on the Alignment Show. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it is in your part of the world. Welcome once again to the Alignment Show. I'm your host, Don King, and we're a little bit late getting on today. We had some tech glitches of sorts, although I suspect when I worked in radio, we used to call this a short between the earphones. So that's more about me, but that's another story. As we're getting started today, you might notice, regular listeners would notice that the crawl down here is a little different. Our episode is sponsored by the next book in the Spark Light series. I can get my tongue untangled here. We've been talking about The Way of the Three-Year-Old Why for months now, but the second book in the Sparklight Chronicles is just about ready to come out. If you would like to see the first scene in that new book, you can go to donking.com. That's DONNKING.com/medium well first. The name of the next book is Medium Well. And it looks at the journey of a young woman who is figuring out her unique place in the world and whether to believe it or not. Its tagline is, "There's a difference between believing and believing in." So we will see how that comes along. Should be coming out in March. In any case, we are glad today to have with us a guest who is, I almost hesitate to say survivor, because it just goes so far beyond that. Let me give you a little background here. Deb Krier is a coalition builder and a warrior rewriting the playbook on how to live with cancer. And she spells that out, L.I.V.E. Diagnosed with stage 4 triple positive breast cancer in 2015. And then diagnosed with thyroid cancer in 2023. She is on a mission to ensure we are no longer fine with cancer. Her goal is to empower those dealing with cancer to embrace their inner warrior, to build a tribe, energize their voices, and expand their choices. Now, I want to tell you a little more about her. As an unlikely cancer survivor, she experienced the disconnection and the despair of a system where cancer is the star of the show, while people with cancer are watching silently from the sidelines. It sounds like to me almost a spectator. And so she's using her experience and expertise to kill cancer with honesty, communication, and collaboration. Now, we're going to learn more about her origin story. Not how did she get into cancer, but how did she get into using her skills in this way. So let's go ahead and bring on stage Deb Krier. Deb, welcome to the Alignment Show.
Hello, and thank you so much. It is a delight to be here, Don.
Indeed, indeed. I was looking over your biography, and obviously battling cancer or living with cancer or that kind of thing is your focus right now. Obvious where that came from. Here on the Alignment Show, we tend to focus on origin stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just real sure, I noticed you had a master's degree in crisis communication, MBA in, I've lost track of the MBA. What's the MBA in?
Well, the MBA I have two masters. One is in corporate communications and the other is in business. And so kind of a combination there of those two.
And that's a good combination. You had those, I would assume, before the cancer.
Oh, yes. Long before.
Yeah. So you had done a lot of the communication stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be an obvious question, but, not everybody who survives the harrowing journey with cancer that you have then make it their mission in life to help other people dealing with those situations. So what was it that led you to say, I'm going to take my business expertise, my communication expertise, and now turn this around to, I'm bumbling a little bit here, Deb. I like to say when you're a writer or a speaker, no matter what happens to you in life, it's material.
Mm-hmm. Right. It
So
is.
what led you to use this to help other people?
Well, it's a combination of things, and first, many years ago, I worked for an oncologist, and I worked for the American Cancer Society doing corporate communication or communications for them. We manage 7 states, communication efforts for the American Cancer Society, and and I do have my own marketing and PR firm, so kind of have all that in my background. Then I got this diagnosis, and that was back in 2015 where everything was supposed to be hunky dory. I mean, it really was just going to be easy peasy. It was the initial diagnosis is what they called stage 0, which in essence is, well, looky there. you know,
Yeah.
we did couple, biopsies that came back negative, all sorts of things. Then it was one of those situations where we discovered that it actually was not stage 0. We excuse me, I managed to get COVID. Such
Oh,
fun.
wow.
Um,
Wow.
and so they discovered that the cancer had spread. And so we went to stage 3. So I went from 0 to 3, just poof. And then later on, the diagnosis was changed to stage 4, which is one of those things that was like, well, that was just annoying. But
Yeah. I
it
mean,
was
to just skip over it's very
I
unusual to
know, they
skip
skip
over those
stuff.
things.
Um, and, so when we did decide to, and I went with the traditional route of treatment. So, that meant chemo. And the decision was made that it was going to be a very, very aggressive form of chemo treatment. And so I took 8 different drugs, 8 in one day. It was very fun. Jimmy John's delivers to an oncology center because I was there for like 9 hours. I mean, it was this thing. Um, Everything went well, as well as it could go, right? Um,
Considering, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, I actually felt really pretty good, for several days, and then I felt a little puny, bleh. But I thought, well, duh, I just had all that chemo. Um, and then I realized, no, this is not right. I developed a complication that at that point, so this was back in 2015, less than 1% of the people who have it is a complication that less than 1% even get. So I was special, right? Just had to be special. Um, and more importantly, at that point, I was the only person who had ever survived it. Because most people don't even realize what's going on until it was too late. By the time I got to the hospital, I was in septic shock. And
Mhm.
so much of what I have gone through after that is because of the septic shock, not the cancer. But spent 7 weeks in the hospital, in and out of ICU, multiple surgeries, all sorts of things. Got home, decided, well, can't do chemo again. Whoops, that didn't work. And so went ahead and had a double mastectomy. Got a complication from that my surgeon had never seen. So again, special, right? And so, but just kept plugging along. I mean, there were several times where my husband was told, "We're not sure."
Mhm.
It's really pretty touchy. But every time I was like, "Well," and so and I just kept working for the most part. I mean, and that's part of this is we do need to keep working as much as we can as we're going through whatever it is that we're dealing with.
Mhm.
Fast forward to several years ago, I'm, and in the meantime, multiple other surgeries, two other types of cancer.
Oh, wow.
Um,
And
so
let me
I
interrupt
mhm,
just a second as you're
mhm,
going through, before coming up to
mhm,
the second big bout
mhm.
here. Um, I know you worked for people, but then you also had your own business during this
I do.
time. You,
I
you
do.
weren't just working; you were trying to keep up a business.
Yes, I was. It's called Wise Women Communications, and I am incredibly blessed. So I'm a consultant providing marketing support. Incredibly blessed to have absolutely fabulous clients who understood that I would just drop off the face of the earth. So and they're still my clients today. I mean, they
Wow.
just and but that is a challenge. Do you work? Do you tell people? Because they might think you can't work. All sorts of things. And as people know with me, I'm pretty open. I'm pretty much an open book. if somebody said, "Well, gee, we're not sure you can be doing the job," I would have gone, "Fine, then go away."
Mm,
But yeah, and so like I said, just kept going merrily along, working in and out. The second cancer was a basal cell cancer on my arm, real easy to treat, just one of those, they just burned the little bugger off real quick and that was that. Um, and but then I also got thyroid cancer last year,
mm.
totally new, separate cancer. So, it's like, well, this is fun. And more than I was annoyed. I was like, really? Seriously? They removed my thyroid gland. Everything was hunky dory. No treatment on that.
Ah,
But I was doing business this entire time. And so I started working with a absolutely fabulous business coach, and she knows all of my history, but we were working on, business things, but we were zooming, and this would have been about 2 years ago. And we had our chat, and then she did this. She shook her finger at me. And this lovely woman is named Kathleen Caldwell. And she said, you did not go through everything you went through without using it to help others. And so that was where we started this, because I'm always one of those. Obviously, I'm shy and retiring, right? So I'm always helping. I'm doing whatever I can in the infusion rooms, meeting with patients, talking to students, things like that. And but I really didn't want to be cancer girl. I
mhm.
didn't want to have a cape. I didn't want to be cancer girl. But she really convinced me that it was, that I did need to give back. But more importantly, how could I help others? And so that was when trying not to die.live was started.
Okay, okay. And I noticed right off that the domain name is not the typical .com.
Right.
So
Mhm.
this was it's almost like that. Um, I'm trying to remember the technical term for it. .com, .edu.
Yeah,
Those
well,
are the
and
top level. That's it.
.org, yeah, all of those.
Yeah, top
Yep.
level
Mhm.
domains. So
Uh-huh,
it's
uh-huh.
almost like, and you pronounce it .live as opposed to
Correct.
.live.
Yes, because we are living. Mhm,
Right, right. So
mhm.
it's almost like that top level domain name was made just for you
Well,
and people in your position.
it was so funny because when now I'm a marketing person, and I know
Mhm,
that we are trained to type .com, right?
mhm.
We've been doing that for however long, the internet got invented. So I, of course, look, well, it's taken. Somebody else has it. They're
Really?
At that point, they were not using it. I contacted them, offered to buy it. They wanted a lot of money, and I said, "This is something going on in my brain. No way am I giving you a four-figure thing."
Mhm,
Um, and so, when you're looking at something like GoDaddy or any of the other places where you can buy domains, it will give you suggestions so .net, .org, .live. And I
mhm.
thought, "Oh my gosh, I am a marketing person." And so it really was just kismet, fate, whatever, that trying not to die.live was born.
Wow, wow. Yeah, just bringing everything together there.
Mhm,
So, you're doing multiple things.
mhm.
You're a podcast host, also over
I
900
am.
episodes.
Right,
Um,
we'll hit 1,000 in November.
oh wow, oh wow. And I went looking for that. Let me see. I think I've got the podcast itself. Did
It's
I
pretty
get that?
easy. It's thebusinesspowerhour.com.
I had made. It's like running a starship sometimes.
I know, all these buttons and gadgets and
Yeah,
doohickeys,
yeah.
right?
Where did I put that? I guess I didn't get it up there. I
That's
was
all
going
right.
to have
Not a
a
problem.
link to the podcast. Oh, I know what I was going to do. Hold on just a second. Hold on, hold on. We've got the
I love live.
technology.
Live is so much fun.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Here is the website
There
for
it
the Power
is. There we
Hour.
are.
There
Hello.
we are.
Hello, me.
Businesspowerhour.com. And so you're doing so many things. One of my practical questions is, how do you balance it all? It's hard enough when you're an entrepreneur, dealing with health issues. How do you balance it all with self care and still get out there with all of these different enterprises?
It is a challenge. I spent yesterday having treatment. I am is still in active treatment. I go every 21 days. I have a port in my shoulder. They plunk the little needle in me, hook me up, and 30 minutes later, I'm good to go.
Mm.
But, it is so much about, as you said, self-care. If we don't take care of ourselves, we're not going to be able to do anything else. So I fully recognize that my work days are not straight 8-hour days.
Mm.
I'm a kindergartner. I have to take a nap. And but I don't get graham crackers and milk. I'm not quite sure what happened there. But you know, uh, you do have to as you're going through this, and even after you've gone through it, chemo and all these various things. Now, I've had 33 surgical procedures
Wow.
since 2015. So, like I said, special, ding, ding, hello. Um, but any of that changes your body, you know, short term, long term. And so you have to recognize what's going on with yourself. Do you need a nap? Do you need to eat? Do you need, are you staying hydrated? All of those various things, because we have to just do that. And more importantly, we have to communicate it to the people around us. They have to know, some days it's just not going to work for me. Or I'm just not going to be my usual chipper, cheery self because all of this is going on. But it does, so I work, a couple hours here, a couple hours there, things like that. People get posts from me at 1 o'clock in the morning because I can't sleep.
Mhm.
I do not encourage people to do that. Don't do that. Your clients, because then your clients think, "Oh, you're working at 1 o'clock in the morning. We can always ask you to do something." No, that's not good. Um, but you just kind of have to go with works. And it's really funny. It's almost kind of like what so many people discovered with COVID, with the whole work from home thing. As long as the work gets done, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter when you do it.
Right.
And so yeah, I mean, but it is a challenge, but I have definitely learned through the course of all these years to pay attention to what my body is saying, because if I don't, then I'm going to have issues.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I've not experienced cancer directly, but I've been around the medical
Mhm.
system pretty good bit. You and I are just getting to know each other, so just
Mhm.
real quickly, a lot of regular listeners have heard this before. We have a severely disabled daughter with a very rare chromosomal
Mhm.
disorder. I'm relating to that thing about being special. There's only 15 to 20 like her known
Mhm.
in the in the world at a given
Wow.
time,
We
and
love
so
special.
yeah, tons of going places and hearing. We've never seen this before,
Mhm.
and I know you heard that a lot as
Mhm.
well.
Right.
So the thing that so I'm sure people they hear you speak, they come to your website, they turn to you for advice. Uh, the thing that's coming through my head right now is I have a tendency to say I have to drop everything, take care of her.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so
Mhm.
I'm
Right.
not taking care of myself.
Right.
She's been hospitalized 36 times in her
Wow.
life. We've lost track of the ER visits.
Mhm.
And so I do try to keep, like the
Mhm. Mhm.
podcast, it's
Right.
always a
Right. Mhm.
possibility that we just are not going to
Mhm.
be here on a given
Right.
day. The 2 o'clock in the morning thing,
Mhm.
yeah, that just happened to
Mhm.
be when it was available.
Mhm.
What advice would you give somebody who's getting this diagnosis maybe a week ago?
Mhm.
I've got two or three things going through my head right now, Deb. I'm thinking the hardest time might be between taking the test
Mhm.
and hearing the
Oh, that
outcome.
horrible waiting period, because your brain goes to the worst places.
Yeah, yeah. So what advice would you give somebody about managing that whole thing about your brain going to the worst possible places?
Try to be patient. I mean, yeah, I know it's really difficult. And now one of the tricky things is that sometimes our test results get released in our online charts
Mhm.
before our doctor talks to us. That's how I found out my cancer had spread.
Oh
My
wow.
doctor, yeah, I was not a happy camper. Um, but the one thing I tell people, step away from the keyboard. Do not
Mhm.
rely on Dr. Google, because if
Mhm.
you type cancer, MS, ALS, COVID, whatever it is,
Mhm.
millions of things come up, many of which are valid, many of which are not.
Mhm.
And so it gets very overwhelming very quickly. So, one of the, I tell people my two resources, and I really pretty much just use two resources for cancer, is a Mayo Clinic and the American Cancer Society. And the American Cancer Society is more for resources, but yeah, Mayo is my go-to to get information, and I know it's reputable, right?
Mhm.
Johns Hopkins is another one. Some of the big well knowns, they're going to have good information. If you, because we do want to prepare ourselves, and it's funny, we it's one side or the other. We either really really want to prepare, or we want to bury our heads in the sand, and we
Yeah.
can do that every day, right? Back and forth and whoopie doo, and and all of those things. So try to limit what you're doing. Okay, I'm going to research, but maybe I'm only going to spend 20 minutes doing it.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's also interesting that our friends and our family and our coworkers, everybody means well and they want to help, but for now, ignore them, because you're going to get a lot of, here's what I've heard, here's what I know. Oh, my grandma had this.
Mhm. Mhm.
Have you tried? And throughout this process, I have had that. And and I know that people mean well. I mean, that
Mhm.
is the thing that I always remember, is that they do mean well. But sometimes I'm just, like, really? And so I thank them politely for their information, and then I go merrily along. But yeah, you need to insulate yourself from that. And then once you get that diagnosis, then that's where you need to research, because your doctor will have said, you have this, here are your treatment options, blah blah
Mhm.
blah. Because you also want to research what alternatives there are. And I do encourage people to do that. For some people, they might totally choose to do something that is not the traditional approach. Like I said, I did chemo, I did radiation, I did surgery. But I also have talked to nutritionists. I have talked to meditation experts, and then of course there are people on that have all sorts of other great information. So the thing is, you have to do what's right for you, and then build that team around you of people who are going to help you the most. um, One of the things that you obviously know far more about is the fact that you have to advocate for your daughter, and and she may not be able to do it for herself. She might be able to do some, but not, and so you have to be that advocate. We have to do that. I mean, I ended up in ICU in very critical condition. I could not do anything. So my husband had to be that advocate and had to say, here is what we are doing. And so make sure you have that in place. From a legal aspect too.
Mhm.
We have to have powers of attorney, all of those various things, durable medical directives, whatever. They're different in every state. So whatever is applicable for your state, do all of that and then go forward. It's
Quick question. We're talking about a lot of things to have to think about at a
it's a
moment.
fire hose. Sorry.
Yeah. No, 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 no. It's not the fire hose of the information. I'm thinking about somebody who's gotten this
Mhm.
diagnosis.
Right.
They now have a lot of things they need to think
Mhm.
about at
Mhm.
the very moment while they're probably least able to think about it.
Right. Mhm.
Are there resources like does the American Cancer Society, or is there anybody
Mhm.
who can provide someone to walk along with you, to help you think about these things?
There are various advocates and support systems where you can do that, especially if you are alone. I mean, because that is something I tell people. When you go to the doctor and you've got the flu, you go home and you go, when was I supposed to take that medicine?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and you're right. When we're told we have cancer or some other serious thing, our brain shuts off.
Yeah.
And so at least for the first couple of appointments where you're really discussing, a lot of the very detailed information, if at all possible, take someone with you.
Mhm.
If you're, your spouse, your family, friend, I've gone with people who are single. I've gone with them to their doctors. Have them, take notes. Have
Mhm.
them have questions. I mean, because they're going to ask totally different questions than you as the patient will.
Right.
Um, you also feel free to record your conversation.
Mhm.
It is not a HIPAA violation for you to record your own doctor's appointment.
Okay.
And I'll be honest with you, if your doctor has a problem with that, to me, that signals another problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
and because it is, you're getting that information like it's the fire hose. And it's just, and so, it's going to help the physician, the medical care provider, whoever it is, for you to understand.
Mhm.
And so that might mean that you have to record it and listen to it again, things like that. But, it's funny, in my oncologist's office, there is a sign on every door and it says, "Do not leave this room if all your questions have not been answered."
That's a wise oncologist. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. I
Very
love
good.
that.
Very good. Just the stuff we've talked about just in the last couple of minutes has aroused three different questions for me. So I jotted down something so I wouldn't
Okay.
forget. So the first thing that comes to mind, not only with your background in dealing with cancer,
Mhm,
but your background as a communications professional,
mhm,
what would be your advice for advocating within the system? Let me frame this here. Uh, Doctors are and nurses not quite so much, but the doctors are under constant
mhm.
time pressure because
Right.
they're trying to deal with insurance stuff, and
Mhm,
uh, it's expensive running a
mhm,
medical practice,
mhm,
so they're always in a hurry.
mhm,
How do you advocate for yourself without becoming confrontational, which
mhm.
has a tendency to shut down
Right,
any communication?
right. Start with having your questions written down because that'll help you organize your thoughts. Many medical care providers now are very fluent in the tech, right? My endocrinologist, who is in charge of the treatment for my thyroid cancer, he's a youngster, and love him dearly. I think he's absolutely fabulous. Online chat with him, or actually, so sending him online communications via whatever the portal is that we have, he is incredible at that.
Hmm.
It is one of those things where I can send him a question. It's never gone more than several hours without him responding. Sometimes it's very quickly. I'm like, "Holy schmoly." And it's him, it's not his staff that's responding.
Interesting.
And so, find out if your medical care folks are good with that. At my oncologist's office, I actually communicate with the nurse
Hmm.
and say, "Hey, I've got this question." So figure some of those things out. If they have those portals and are using them, then that might be a good way to communicate, because you'll think of questions when you're in the shower, when you're
Hmm.
driving, 2 o'clock in the morning, and so now you can't really do it when you're in the shower or driving, but at 2 o'clock in the morning, you can pop them a quick message and say, "Hey, just woke up, was thinking about this." They're probably not going to respond for a little bit, but but we do need to realize it's as you said, they have so many time constraints. So how can we organize ourselves better to try and get them through that process too? Because they're told, by their practice, by insurance, by whoever, you will see X number of patients in an hour.
Hmm.
And so yeah, it's just try to be as organized as possible, but you, the patient, are the one in charge.
Hmm. Hmm.
That is it. I mean, that is ultimately what it is you as the patient or your advocate. You are the ones in charge. If that doctor or that nurse practitioner or whoever isn't answering your questions, make a fuss.
Hmm.
And I'll be honest, I through this whole process, I have fired 3 doctors.
Hmm.
Good doctors, one saved my life. I mean, I have absolutely no doubt about that. He was the first surgeon who treated me when I had septic shock. And but he and I did not get along. And so, when you have a care team that you're gonna have for maybe many years, you don't have to like them, but you have to trust them.
Yeah.
And so, make sure that those are the people that you want in your corner.
Great distinction there, and it's not even so much as you're saying, uh, directly or indirectly. It's not about their medical skills necessarily. It's do you connect? 'Cause
Right.
that
Yeah,
connection thing is just
yeah.
so
He was a
important.
surgeon, and he really was a very good surgeon. But he dealt with people when they were unconscious, and I think there was a reason that he did.
Well, and there's a stereotype here, but it's
Mhm,
based
mhm.
in fact.
Right.
Surgeons are
Mhm.
not known for their bedside
Right.
manner, and so yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Now that said, the surgeon I replaced him with, I would walk on fire for.
Mm.
He has done, I think, 5 surgeries for me. He actually did the thyroid surgery, and when I went in, I had it done last summer, and when I went in, he went, "Oh god, you're back." And but, he is absolutely he's just, there would be no way I could ever say enough good words about him, and he's incredibly well thought of in the medical community. It's one of
Mhm.
those where somebody will say, "Who's your surgeon?" And I say, "Dr. Odom," and they'll go, "Ooh," right? Um, because he is just he's his bedside manner is wonderful. He never makes you feel rushed or anything like
Mhm.
that. But yeah, I mean, he is fantastic.
And I'm wondering, just a quick insight here, if you have it. Is this because of his natural personality, or do you think that medical education is changing to where they teach a little bit more about patient interaction?
I would guess that he is naturally like that.
Okay.
He is a true people person.
Mhm.
When the hospital here went into COVID protocol 2 years ago, he took over. He was the person who ran it.
Ah,
Um, and now he had been chief of staff before, but yeah, I mean, he has multiple. I mean, he's very organized. He's a business person, all of those various things. But I don't know about, and that is one of the things that I work with medical providers on is how can they provide better? Now they call it patient-centered care. And
mhm.
I tell them, no, no, it's called customer service, and many of you suck.
Yeah.
Because of the constraints. And let's be honest, I mean, if they got emotionally involved with every patient, they couldn't survive. They
Oh, yeah,
just
yeah.
couldn't do it.
There's a middle ground there,
Right,
because you don't wanna treat them like a piece of
right.
meat. You
Mhm,
also don't wanna get
mhm,
so involved that
mhm.
you lose your
Right.
objectivity and you can't
Mhm.
serve them as well
Right,
that way.
yeah. And so I remind them, I am a person, I'm not a patient. Treat me like you want your mother, your sister, your spouse, your whoever treated. Um, and it was funny, one of the times when I went in for the checkup on my thyroid gland removal, I was in the exam room and I heard them out in the hall and they said, "Thyroid patient in room 4." And I went out. I said, "Excuse me." I know because of HIPAA, you
Yeah.
can't use my name. I said, "But I am not thyroid cancer patient." And they said, "You're right, and we should not have done that." They said, "We can certainly use your first name." And so they
Right.
now, that may have lasted 15 minutes, but, it is just a matter of remembering that we are people and we're not that patient. And it's, and it is hard. I mean, God bless them. I don't know how they do it.
I know, I know. It's quite a juggling act.
Mhm.
Well, let me ask another insight question here,
Mhm.
again, from the background in communication.
Mhm.
I'm sure years ago you learned the 7 news values and all that sort of thing. I used to tell my parents who worried about being the victims of crime,
Mhm.
if it shows up in the newspaper, by definition, it's unusual.
Mhm.
Okay,
Right.
we're talking now about the internet, and while there aren't editors who are choosing stories, at
Mhm.
least most of what we come across, certainly not on Google, as you say, just because of what people search for,
Mhm.
are we most likely to find in our searches the most extreme examples just because of the what's the word I'm looking for? Not logarithm,
Algorithms.
algorithm.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah, just
Yeah.
because of the algorithm, does it automatically almost track us to the most extreme and therefore the scariest stuff?
I it's to some because, I am an old PR person, and so
Mhm.
we were taught, if it bleeds, it leads,
Right,
right?
right.
Which
Hmm.
means that the sensational stories get the most clicks.
Hmm.
Used to be eyeballs, well, still is eyeballs, but, we and so the more sensational, the more somebody tends to pay attention to something.
Hmm.
And so then the internet guru god people, whoever's go, "Ooh, people must be interested in it." And
Hmm.
and so it does, so it's kind of this weird thing. So I would encourage people to really, again, think about it. If you typed in cancer and got, new cure found, world's population saved, put
Mhm.
that through your little brain filter and go, really? you know,
Yeah.
um, and now hopefully we do see that at some point, right? That really, oh my gosh, wouldn't that be fabulous? But yeah, it's we do have to keep in mind some things. And I was a political science major, and I had a professor she was this rather odd woman who would always yell, ton Stoffel. And we're
Yes,
like,
there ain't no
"Hmm,
such thing as a free lunch. Yep.
right. And so but it is along the lines there of, if it's too good to be true, it probably isn't.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where we really have to think about it is, is it too good to be true? I had
Mhm.
somebody, multiple people through this process, they were going to cure me
Mhm.
with yeah, and usually it was a powdered drink, right? Out of
Or
some kind of,
Lysol or something,
right,
yeah.
right, yeah, and I was very polite. I would listen to them, and I, and I finally told one very overly persistent person, "I'm sorry. If your protein drink cured cancer, you wouldn't be selling it out of the trunk of your car." And of course, never heard from her again. Are there benefits to that? Sure, if it had high protein and things like that, yeah, but it's probably not going to cure cancer. And there are the skeptics of the world that
Mhm.
say the cures have been found, but because there's so much money to be made, you know, eh,
We're surrounded by conspiracy
and,
theories, yes.
there are times where you actually do think that, right, though? It's like,
Mhm.
"Well, I bet they could. They know what they're doing," but yeah, it's put it through the common sense filter and just go, "Really, does this sound right?"
Mm.
And then discuss it with your medical team. And those can be a variety of people. I mean, it's, like I said, nutritionists, mental health experts, hello, are very important as
Mhm.
part of this process. But ask them about it. If it really is something that is fantastic, more people will have heard about it than just what I saw in my Facebook feed.
Right, right. Well, and this kind of automatically leads into my other question, which is we've been talking about needed advice, absolutely needed advice for people who have the cancer or have the
Mhm,
diagnosis of whatever it is. We've been talking about the impact of well-meaning friends.
mhm,
Let's turn it around, and you probably do this in some of your talks because I know you deal with the whole community.
mhm, right.
So, what would the advice be for the friends? Let me give a
Mhm,
quick context here. My oldest son died about 6 years ago,
mhm,
and so we went through, the thing of people they're feeling for us.
mhm,
Okay, they don't know what to say,
mhm,
and so a lot of people, if they didn't know what to say, they would either avoid
mhm,
us or um they'd put the things out there like, always in a better place, or, the things that are well intended but
right.
don't really help.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm,
so uh, I would tell people when you don't know what to say, it's important to say it anyway
mhm.
because the connection is
I'm
most
sorry
important.
works
Yeah.
really well.
So what we're going for here is what advice would you
Mhm,
give to the friends and the
mhm.
family of the person who's received the diagnosis? Is it just go sit with them and be silent, let them talk about whatever they
Mhm.
want to? The other thing they would do is completely avoid the topic.
Oh, yeah. Mhm. That elephant stayed in that room, but they would never talk about it.
Right, right.
Mhm.
So
Well, they
advice,
didn't wanna
and we are
upset
running
you.
short of
Mhm,
time here,
mhm,
but I think this is really important to
mhm.
help the people around the
Right,
cancer
right.
diagnosee.
Yeah. It's exactly what you said, and we kinda go through the same thing. People ignore it. They don't wanna bring it up. They don't know what to say, so they don't say anything, and then we're like, "Well, I guess they really didn't love us after all."
Yeah.
Um, sit like you said, sit with them. People who told me we didn't know what to say, I told them, "You know what? Hallmark has cards."
Yeah.
You know? And I still have all the cards I got. I mean, I don't know what I'm ever gonna do with them, but it's it and when you do communicate with them, and this also goes for when you're talking to their caregivers, be specific if you want to help. It is, it's great to say, we feel for you. What can we do? But if you say, let us know if there's anything we can do. our little brains shut off. We can't, and same with caregivers. I mean, the caregivers need assistance too. But if you say, hey, Don, what can we do? You don't want to intrude, all of those various things. So be specific. Don, can we bring you dinner on Thursday? Thursday doesn't work. How about Friday? We had somebody who contacted us and said, don't your dogs need to go to the vet for some shots? And they did, but it was not anything that, we could be doing. So be as specific as possible. Sometimes just going and sitting with them is the best thing you can do. And I tell people, take a book because they might fall asleep. And it's kind of hard. Don't overstay your welcome. One of my friends who was a caregiver said her friend showed up one day to clean her house. She was absolutely mortified and then extremely grateful. Because it was something that hadn't been getting done. And, they did, they just, and another friend who said, I had a cooler outside the door and people brought meals and put it in there, so, whatever you can do, be specific. But here's the thing, we also don't want to hear about when your great grandma had whatever it was. You know, eh, Even if somebody, and I know somebody right now who has the exact same diagnosis I do, that's where it ends. Everything else is different. I had that extremely weird complication. We have to always remember that just because somebody has the same thing, they really don't. And so telling them, well, it really helped, my grandma to have 18 glasses of grapefruit juice a day. That might not work for you.
Would it be a supportive thing, a useful thing, you connecting with somebody with the same diagnosis to say to them, I went through something similar. I respect that your situation is different. If you have any questions for me, don't worry about intruding.
Right.
I will
Oh,
be
yeah.
open to your questions,
And
but
I am
otherwise,
much
I'm
like
not going to
that.
advise.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody last week through, she had a brand new port and really didn't know what to expect with it. So I was kind of talking to her about that. Yeah, we need to kind of be helpful but general is maybe the way to put it, and not go into the detail unless they keep asking. I mean, they might say, well, what if, and has this happened? Well, then you can say, okay, well, yeah, this happened and then this was what happened. And of course I always remind anybody, please remember my complication was extremely rare. It's not going to happen to you. And so that was just kind of the thing. But yeah, it in many ways it is like a loss. And it is, we have lost what we thought, was, our plans have changed.
There's a grieving
So,
process.
it's, but yeah, folks, don't hesitate to reach out, even if all you are saying is, I got your back. I feel bad for you. Um, because we feel very alone during this time. And so anything you can do, and like I said, Hallmark has cards. you know.
Yeah. Well, and I heard on a podcast yesterday, they were talking about a different situation, but one of those kind of things that people are scared by
Mhm,
the crisis that the other
mhm,
person is
mhm,
in. And so just to say to them, maybe explicitly, your situation is not going to scare me away,
right. Mhm,
that can be
yeah.
helpful. And we're a little over time at this
Oh,
point
no.
with what we usually go. That's okay. I want to do two things. One, I
Okay.
want to be sure people know how to get in contact. And I've got some QR codes up here for the folks who are
Thank
with us
you.
on video. This is the same one that we said out loud a little while ago. We do
Mhm,
have audio only, folks, Deb. And
mhm.
so,
Yep. So tryingnottoDie.live is the website.
okay, .live, not .com.
L-I-V-E. It's all four
Yeah,
letters.
right. Sorry.
Yep.
I'm talking too
We
fast
get
here.
so used to these things, right?
Yes, indeed. And
Mhm,
you've heard me say Deb Krier. Her last name is spelled Krier.
mhm.
Okay. And so you can find her on LinkedIn. It's the same picture for those of you on video, but it's a different QR code. So connect on LinkedIn as
Oh,
well.
please
If you
do.
go looking for her, then you need to know that Deb, DEB, and it's actually Deborah on LinkedIn, but you'll find it with Deb. Deb,
There's only
K
about 3
R.
of us.
Yeah, yeah. Krier.
Mhm.
And then let me see. There was something else. I guess that's
We
it
do
as
have a
far.
Facebook group. It is
Ah,
a private Facebook group, and the link to that is on tryingnottoDie.live. And it's a great place for anyone who is on this journey or may have gone through the journey to be able to support others. It is a private group to make it a safe place for people to share and to reach out to people.
indeed, indeed. And we will. I don't have it for the screen, but we'll get it in the
That's
show
fine.
notes.
Well, thank you.
And so, a little reminder to people: you can always get show notes at confidencecultivators.com. And those of you who are on here audio only, we'll have the link to that in the show notes, but you wouldn't know to get to the show notes anyway. I have one closing question that I always like to ask. And this may be difficult for you because there's so many things that you're into, but there's almost always something that you wish that I had asked that I didn't ask. What would that question be, and what would your answer to it be?
Hmm. What drives you every day to keep going?
Okay.
And
And
so
I had actually
Mhm.
thought of that question and
Yeah,
then went away from it. So
yeah.
let's answer that one then.
I tell people if I wake up and I'm not looking up at 6 feet of dirt, I'm having a good day. But we do have to keep going. And that is the whole trying not to die.live. We get so focused on trying to not die that we forget that we have to live, whether it's 5 hours,
Mhm.
5 minutes, 50 years. We have to live, and we have to live every single day as much as we possibly can.
And I noticed that in your bio you had spelled out live L.I.
It
So
is
I'm
an
assuming that
acronym.
stands.
People
So
can go look on the website since we're over time.
okay. So just go to the website we've been mentioning, and you'll learn more about that. So Deb, if you can hang out in the green room for just a minute, I'll
Perfect.
thank you properly. We'll tell folks about what's coming up next
Thank
week.
you
But thank
so
you for
much for
being
this
here.
opportunity.
Oh, wow. Just great conversation. Thank you. Thank you. I'll
Thank
be
you.
right back with you. And so, folks, wow, what a conversation here. I mean, uh, it's a difficult topic to talk about. And Deb just so evidences how to be open and just be yourself. Don't have to go to the extreme of avoiding it, not talking about it at all, or making it the center of everything. Just wow, wow. There's just so much wow here. So we have these conversations of some sort like this every week, folks who are thinking about what's most important to them, how to live their values so they can value their life. We have another guest coming up next week. Kevin O'Connor will be on next Friday. Kevin has an interesting background. He wrote a book, and the title of the book is Two Floors Above Grief. Okay, what's that about? Well, it's advice from the perspective, lessons to be considered from the son of a funeral director. So that's going to be an interesting conversation. So, in any case, I hope that you will make plans to be with us, either live or catching the replay. We appreciate you spending your time with us here at the Alignment Show, and we will look forward to seeing you next week. That's it for this week's episode of The Alignment Show. What has it inspired you to do in your own life? Whatever it is, take action now and take the first step. It will help you to talk with a friend about what you're thinking. Share confidencecultivators.com to spread the goodness. And remember to live your values and value your life. We will see you next week on The Alignment Show.